There are 200 billion trillion stars scattered across the universe. That is more suns than there are grains of sand on every beach, in every desert, on the whole of planet Earth. Somewhere out there, around one of those countless stars, you would expect to find someone, a signal, a voice calling back across the dark. And for more than half a century, we have been listening for exactly that, pointing our finest instruments at the sky, straining to catch even a whisper. What we have heard, so far, is nothing at all. Just silence. A silence so complete and so strange that some of the answers people have found for it are far more unsettling than the question itself. One of them suggests that the universe is quiet for a reason, that everyone out there is staying hidden and staying hidden on purpose. So where is everyone? That is the question we are going to sit with and try to understand. Chapter 1: The Paradox and the Man Who Named It. To feel how strange the silence really is, you first have to feel how big the universe is. And that is harder than it sounds, because our minds simply were not built for numbers this large. Take our home, the Milky Way. It is a spiral of somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion stars, turning slowly in the dark, and our sun is just one of them, an ordinary star, tucked away in one of the outer arms. Now step back. The Milky Way is only a single galaxy, and the observable universe holds around 2 trillion of them. Each galaxy, its own vast city of suns. Multiply it all out, and you land on a figure close to 200 billion trillion stars. A 2, with 23 zeros trailing behind it. Honestly, a number like that stops meaning anything. So picture it a different way. Imagine walking along a beach and running the sand through your fingers. Now imagine counting every grain on that beach and every other beach and every desert everywhere on Earth. Even then, you would not have counted as high as the number of stars above your head. There are more suns in the sky than there are grains of sand beneath our feet. For most of history, we assumed those stars were lonely, bright but barren, beautiful points of light with nothing much around them. And then we started building telescopes good enough to check, and what they found quietly rewrote the story. The great turning point came with a space telescope called Kepler. Its job was simple to describe and astonishing to actually carry out. It fixed its gaze on a single patch of sky and simply stared, without blinking, for years, watching more than 100,000 stars at the same time. What it was waiting for was almost impossibly subtle, the faint, momentary dip in a star's brightness that happens when a planet passes in front of it, blocking out a tiny sliver of its light. Imagine trying to notice a moth fluttering across a distant searchlight, and you begin to grasp how delicate that measurement is. And Kepler saw those dips everywhere it looked. Star after star, the little dimmings came, revealing worlds we could never have seen directly. Slowly, from all that patient watching, a new picture of the galaxy emerged, and it overturned the old assumption completely. Planets, it turned out, are not rare treasures scattered thinly through the cosmos. They are ordinary. They are almost everywhere. Most stars have at least one. A great many have a whole family of them, whole solar systems wheeling quietly around suns we had always imagined to be alone. In one sweep, the number of possible homes for life in the galaxy exploded from a hopeful guess into a near certainty of billions upon billions. Better still, a good number of those worlds are small and rocky, roughly the size of Earth, sitting in what astronomers call the habitable zone. That is the comfortable ring around a star where the temperature is just right, warm enough that water can stay liquid, not so hot that it boils away, not so cold that it freezes into stone. The place where, as far as we know, life has a chance to begin. So, let's gather the pieces slowly, because each one pushes the mystery deeper. There are billions upon billions of stars. Most of them have planets. A huge share of those planets sit in that gentle habitable zone. Many of them carry the right ingredients: the water, the carbon, the raw chemistry that life on Earth was built from. And time has been almost endless. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. That is an ocean of years, long enough for life to appear, to crawl, to think, to build, and to reach for the stars, over and over again, in a billion different places. Everything we know points the same way. By rights, the galaxy should be busy. It should be crowded with life, humming with signals, glowing with the works of 1,000 civilizations older than our own. And here is the part that should stop you cold. When we actually look, when we aim our sharpest telescopes and our most sensitive radio dishes at the heavens and simply listen, we find none of it. No messages threading through space, no enormous structures where none should naturally be, no fingerprint of anyone, anywhere, only us. One small blue world sending its questions out into a dark that has never once answered. If life should be everywhere, and the universe has had all the time in the world, then the sky ought to be full of voices. So where is everybody? That question is so simple that a child could ask it over breakfast, yet it carries a weight that has troubled some of the finest minds who ever lived. And oddly enough, it earned its name in a moment about as ordinary as breakfast. It was the summer of 1950 at the Los Alamos Laboratory in New Mexico, the same secretive desert compound where, only a few years earlier, the first atomic bombs had been designed. On this particular day, a small group of physicists were strolling to lunch, chatting about nothing in particular. They had been amused by a cartoon in a popular magazine, a light-hearted drawing that blamed a recent string of vanishing city rubbish bins on aliens, showing little green figures cheerfully loading the bins into a flying saucer. It was the sort of thing you laugh about and forget. Among them walked Enrico Fermi, and he was no ordinary lunch companion. He was one of the towering scientific minds of the 20th century, the man who had built the world's first nuclear reactor, famous for being able to work out the rough answer to almost any question in his head, on the spot, from a few scraps of information. The talk drifted, the way lunchtime talk always does, moving on from the cartoon to other things. And then, somewhere between the jokes and the sandwiches, Fermi grew quiet and asked a question that has never really stopped echoing since. He looked up and said, more or less, "But where is everybody?" He was not joking. In that one offhand sentence, he had put his finger on something enormous. He could see, faster than most people could scribble the numbers down, that the galaxy is ancient and wide and generous with the chances for life. And if all of that is true, then the emptiness we keep finding, makes no sense. If they truly should be here, and they are plainly not, then one of our comfortable assumptions has to be wrong. Some piece of the picture is missing, and we have no idea which piece. That gap between the crowded universe we expect and the silent one we keep finding is what we now call the Fermi Paradox. And it has never gone away. It has stayed with us all these decades, growing heavier with every passing year, because the sharper our instruments become, the deeper the quiet seems to run. Each new telescope was supposed to start filling that silence with voices. Instead, each one has only confirmed how empty the sky sounds. And that is really the heart of it. The name was born from a passing joke on the way to lunch. But the question hiding underneath has haunted us ever since. Over the decades, thinkers have offered answer after answer. And as we are about to see, each one grows a little stranger and a little darker than the one before. Before we open that first door, though, there is something we need to settle. Because it is easy to say the universe is silent. It is much harder to grasp just how carefully and how desperately we have been listening. Chapter 2: How hard we have been listening. It would be one thing if the silence were simply an accident of not paying attention. If we had glanced up once or twice, shrugged, and gone back to our own affairs, then of course, we would not expect to have heard anything. But that is not what happened. We have been listening with everything we have for a very long time, and the quiet has held anyway. To understand how, you first have to picture what a message from another civilization might even look like. We can hardly expect a letter in the post or a polite voice on the telephone. Across such enormous distances, contact would come in far stranger forms. What scientists look for is something they call a technosignature. Think of it as a fingerprint left behind by technology. Just as your fingerprint, pressed onto a glass, quietly says that a human being was here, a technosignature would say that a civilization had touched this corner of space. And such fingerprints could take many shapes. It might be a radio broadcast leaking outward into the void, the way our own signals do. It might be the glow of artificial lights strung across a planet's night side, betraying cities where there should only be darkness. It might be the faint chemical smudge of industrial pollution hanging in a distant atmosphere, or the peculiar gleam of an enormous structure catching its star's light. Anything, in short, that nature by itself would find very hard to produce. The whole art of the search is learning to tell the fingerprints of a mind apart from the ordinary handiwork of physics. The most obvious fingerprint to hunt for is radio. Think for a moment about how loud our own world has quietly become. For about a century, we have been bathing the sky in radio waves without ever meaning to. Every television broadcast, every radar sweep at an airport, every burst of chatter between our machines has been spilling off the surface of the earth and rippling outward into the galaxy at the speed of light. Right now, a bubble of our old signals is expanding through space, already washing over thousands of nearby stars. We are, in a sense, glowing, not to the eye, but to anyone with the right kind of ear. So it made sense to turn that thought around. If we are leaking radio into the dark without even trying, then perhaps someone else is too. And if they are, the question becomes beautifully simple. Could we build an ear sensitive enough to catch it? Could we, sitting on our small planet, overhear a conversation happening light years away? That hope gave birth to one of the most patient efforts in the history of science, a field known simply as the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It is a strange and lonely kind of work. For decades, astronomers have swung enormous dishes toward the stars and swept slowly across the frequencies, listening to the raw hiss of the cosmos and trying to pick out something that does not belong. The universe, you see, is naturally noisy. Stars crackle, gas clouds hum, spinning dead stars called pulsars beat out rhythms so precise that, when the first one was found, astronomers half joked about naming it for little green men. So the hunt is really a search for a particular kind of oddness, a tone too pure and too narrow to come from any natural fire, a rhythm too deliberate to be an accident, a whisper that carries, somehow, the unmistakable mark of a mind that meant to speak. And for that whisper to be worth anything, it has to survive every attempt to explain it away as something ordinary. And in recent years, that hunt has grown more ambitious than ever. One of the largest projects yet is scanning around 1 million of the nearest stars, along with 100 whole galaxies, backed by tens of millions of dollars and some of the best radio telescopes on the planet. This is not a casual glance at the sky. It is the most sensitive, most thorough radio search our species has ever attempted. And here is what all that effort has turned up. After sweeping across 1 million stars, after listening for years on end with instruments of breathtaking precision, we have found no confirmed signal, not one. There have been moments of excitement, of course. Every so often, a strange blip appears in the data, and for a little while, a few hearts race. But when the astronomers chase it down, it always dissolves into something ordinary in the end. A passing satellite, a burst of interference from a distant radar. Once, famously, a signal that turned out to come from a microwave oven in the observatory's own kitchen opened too early by a hungry member of staff. Time and again, the mystery shrinks back into the mundane. So the great silence is a measured result, written down carefully in the data after years of patient searching. We built the ears. We aimed them at 1 million suns. We waited, and we listened, and we filtered out our own noise. And through all of it, the universe simply stayed quiet, offering nothing back but the natural hiss of the stars. That is what gives this puzzle its teeth. The more thoroughly we search, the harder it becomes to explain the emptiness away. We can no longer comfort ourselves by saying we simply have not looked, because we have looked, long and hard and well. Each careful, fruitless sweep of the sky quietly closes off the easy answers and forces us toward the stranger ones. If they are truly out there, then something is keeping them from us. And so we are pushed, almost against our will, down a long corridor of possibilities, each one a different attempt to explain the quiet. Some of what waits down that corridor is almost soothing. Some of it is deeply disturbing. We will begin with the gentlest door of all, and open colder ones as we go. That is what makes the paradox bite. The more carefully we search, the louder the silence becomes. Every empty sweep of the sky narrows the space for easy answers. We cannot simply say we have not bothered to check, because we have checked again and again and come home with nothing. So we are left with a harder path. If the sky is genuinely as empty as it sounds, then we have to ask why. And it is here that the real journey begins. Through a long corridor of possible explanations, each one an attempt to make sense of the quiet. Some are almost comforting, others are anything but. We will start with the gentlest of them, and then keep walking, as the answers grow colder with every step. And it is worth saying, before we begin, that none of these ideas are wild guesses scribbled on a napkin. Each one has been argued over, refined, and tested against the evidence by serious minds. They are not competing fantasies, so much as different lenses, each bringing a different part of the mystery into focus. Some may be partly true at once. The universe is under no obligation to have a single, tidy answer. But we have to start somewhere, so we will begin with the gentlest possibility of all. The first idea is deceptively simple. Perhaps the reason we hear no one out there is that there is almost no one out there to hear. Chapter 3. Maybe they are rare, and maybe they die. The simplest way to explain an empty universe is to suppose that it really is nearly empty. That life, and especially clever, technological life, is so staggeringly rare that vast stretches of the galaxy hold no one at all. The silence would not be a mystery then, it would just be the truth. This line of thinking has a name. Some scientists call it the rare earth idea. The argument runs like this. We tend to assume that because life took hold on our planet, it must spring up easily, anywhere the conditions look friendly. It feels like common sense. Life appeared on Earth almost as soon as the planet cooled, so surely, given a warm rock and some water, it should appear all over the place. But when you look closer at our own home, that easy confidence starts to wobble, because you begin to notice just how many things had to line up, quietly and precisely, for us to be here at all. Consider the moon. It is far larger, compared to its planet, than almost any other moon we know, and its steady pull keeps the Earth from wobbling wildly on its axis. Without it, our tilt might lurch back and forth over the ages, throwing the climate into wild extremes that complex life would struggle to survive. Consider our giant neighbor, Jupiter, sitting out in the cold like a great gravitational guardian, its enormous pull sweeping up or flinging away many of the wandering comets that might otherwise have come crashing down on us. Consider where we sit in the galaxy, not jammed into the crowded, radiation-soaked core, but out in a calm and quiet suburb, circling a stable, even-tempered star that has not fried us or frozen us in billions of years. And consider the heart of the Earth itself, a churning core of molten metal that wraps the whole planet in an invisible magnetic shield, silently turning aside the stream of deadly particles our own sun throws at us, the very radiation that might otherwise have stripped our air and water away long ago. Any one of those, taken alone, sounds like a small thing, but stack them all up, one on top of another, and a troubling possibility comes into focus. Perhaps worlds like ours, with the whole fragile stack in place, are not common at all. Perhaps we are the product of a long, improbable run of good luck. And if that is true, then the galaxy might still be damp with life in its simplest forms. Films of microbes clinging to warm rocks here and there, while worlds that go further, that grow forests and animals, and eventually minds, able to wonder about any of this, are almost vanishingly scarce. Life might be everywhere, and yet company, real company, might be desperately, achingly rare. But rarity is only half of this chapter, because there is a second, darker version of the same idea, and it does not say that no one ever arises. It says that they arise and then they vanish. This is where we meet one of the most important concepts in the whole mystery. Scientists call it the Great Filter. The idea is that somewhere along the enormous journey from lifeless chemistry to a civilization that sails between the stars, there is a step so difficult that almost nothing ever gets past it. A wall, a bottleneck in the road that stops nearly every traveler cold. And the truly unsettling thing is that we do not know where that wall stands. Picture the whole journey from dead matter to a star-faring civilization as a long road, broken up by a series of narrow gates. At each gate, only a fraction of travelers make it through to the next stretch. The first gate is the leap from plain lifeless chemistry to the very first living thing that can copy itself. The next is the jump from simple cells to complex ones, the kind with a nucleus and inner machinery. A step that on Earth seems to have taken billions of years, and, as far as we can tell, may have happened only a single time in all that history. Beyond that lies the gate to many-celled creatures, then the gate to intelligence, then to language, to tools, to science, and finally to a technology powerful enough to lift a civilization off its home world and out among the stars. Every one of those gates is a candidate. Every one of them might be the Great Filter, the single step so brutally unlikely that almost no traveler in the entire galaxy has ever passed it. And because we cannot yet see other worlds in enough detail to know which gate stops them, we are left staring at our own road, unsure which of the gates behind us was the deadly one, and terribly unsure whether the deadly one is behind us at all. Now sit with what that means for us. If the Great Filter lies behind us, if the hardest gate was something we have already stumbled through, like that first spark of life, or that leap to complex cells, then we may be among the rare few who made it, and the road ahead is open. But if the filter still lies ahead of us, waiting somewhere in our future, then we should be very afraid, because it has stopped every civilization that ever came before, and there is little reason to think it will spare us. This turns one of our deepest hopes completely upside down, and it is worth pausing to feel just how strange the reversal is. We spend fortunes searching for life beyond Earth. We send rovers crawling across the deserts of Mars, hunting for the faintest trace of ancient microbes. We dream, many of us, of the day a probe finally sends home the news that we are not alone. It feels like it would be the most wonderful discovery in human history. And yet, in the cold logic of the Great Filter, that wonderful discovery could be a quiet death sentence. Here is why. If we were to find life springing up all over the place, simple life, and especially complex, thriving life, it would tell us that the early gates on that long road are easy to pass. And if the early gates are easy, then the deadly one, the true Great Filter, cannot be behind us. It must still lie ahead, somewhere in our future, waiting. So the more life we find out there, the more we should worry. And, unsettling as it is to say, the emptier and quieter the universe turns out to be, the better our own chances might actually be. An empty sky, in this strange light, starts to look less like loneliness and more like a sign that we may have already survived the worst. So what could that final gate be? What might reliably end a civilization before it spreads? Here, worryingly, we do not have to imagine very hard, because we can look at ourselves. We have already built weapons capable of ending our own story in an afternoon. And in recent years, thinkers have started pointing to another candidate, a technology racing ahead of our wisdom to control it. Some have argued that artificial intelligence itself could be a great filter, that a civilization might create a mind greater than its own and lose command of it long before it ever reaches for the stars. That is a chilling thought to hold. But before we follow it toward our own future, there is another possibility to face. Perhaps the silence is not a sign that they died out. Perhaps they are still out there, thriving, and we simply are not able to see them at all. Chapter 4. Maybe they are too advanced to see. So far, we have wondered whether the universe is silent because no one is there, or because whoever was there is gone. But there is a stranger option, and it flips the whole question around. What if the great civilizations are alive and flourishing right now, and the reason we cannot find them is that they have grown so advanced they slip straight past our senses? To even talk about this, we need a way to measure how powerful a civilization might become. Back in 1964, a Soviet astronomer named Nikolai Kardashev came up with an elegant one, and it is still used today. He suggested ranking civilizations not by their weapons or their cities, but by the sheer amount of energy they can harness. A Type 1 civilization has mastered all the energy of its home planet. Every ray of sunlight that lands on it, every wind that blows, every tide that turns, every ounce of heat rising from beneath its crust. Picture a world that wastes nothing, that has learned to run its whole existence on the full power budget of a single planet. That is only the first rung. A Type 2 has outgrown its planet entirely and learned to capture the entire output of its star. Not the fraction of sunlight that happens to strike one small world, but the full flood of energy a sun pours out in every direction, every second, most of which normally streams off uselessly into empty space. To a civilization like that, an entire star becomes a power source. And a Type 3 has gone further than we can easily imagine, spreading across an entire galaxy and drawing on the combined might of hundreds of billions of stars at once. A civilization woven through the whole of a galaxy like ours, as far beyond a Type 2 as a Type 2 is beyond a single campfire. At that level, the beings we are talking about would be less like a nation and more like a force of nature, reshaping the heavens on a scale that would look, to us, indistinguishable from magic. So where does that leave us, with all our dams and power stations and spacecraft? Humbling as it is to admit, we have not yet even reached Type 1. On this scale, we sit at somewhere around 0.7, a young species, still fumbling to manage the energy of our own small world, not even the full master of a single planet yet, let alone a star. Now, a Type 2 civilization raises a fascinating question. How exactly do you capture the entire output of a star? The classic answer is a vast structure, sometimes called a Dyson sphere. Do not picture a solid ball around a star. That would be almost impossible to build and to hold together. Picture instead an immense swarm of collectors, perhaps millions of them, orbiting a sun in their countless thousands, drinking in its light from every angle. A star surrounded by its own artificial cloud of power stations, harvesting energy on a scale that dwarfs anything we could presently dream of. And here is the clever part, the part that turns this from a fantasy into something we can actually search for. If a civilization wrapped its star in collectors like that, most of the visible light would be caught and put to use, so the star would seem to dim as though something were quietly swallowing its glow. But the laws of physics are strict, and energy is never destroyed. Once that starlight has been used, it has to escape again in another form, and it comes back out as heat, as infrared light, the kind our eyes cannot see, but our instruments can measure with ease. So a star tending an alien megastructure would carry a strange double signature, fainter than it ought to be in ordinary light, and yet glowing far too brightly in the infrared, radiating waste heat like a machine that has been running for a very long time. Which means we do not have to wait for a message. We can go looking for the machines themselves, and astonishingly, we have started to do exactly that. In recent years, one project combed through the records of around 5 million stars, gathered by a set of powerful sky surveys, hunting for that strange infrared glow. After filtering out all the ordinary things that can mimic it, dust rings, background galaxies, and the like, the search was left holding roughly 7 candidates. 7 stars behaving in a way that a Dyson sphere could, in theory, explain. Now, we have to be careful and honest here, because honesty is what separates real wonder from empty hype. Almost certainly, those 7 candidates have perfectly natural explanations that we simply have not pinned down yet. Nature is endlessly inventive, and there are dusty disks and distant galaxies and all manner of ordinary things that can mimic that odd infrared glow. No serious scientist is standing up to announce that we have found alien engineering. These are curiosities to be investigated, not answers. But pause on what has actually happened here, because it is quietly astonishing. The search for star-spanning civilizations has stepped out of the pages of science fiction and into real catalogs of real stars. We have genuinely sifted through the light of 5 million suns, asking of each one a serious question. Is anybody home, and have they built something enormous around their star? We are no longer just dreaming about Type 2 civilizations. We are actively, methodically, hunting for their machines. And the fact that we can even do that, that the tools now exist to check, is a milestone in its own right. And this reframes the silence in a genuinely unnerving way. Think about the gap between us and a civilization millions of years more advanced. We share our own planet with ant colonies, complex little societies with their own architecture and farming and warfare. Yet we do not try to send them radio messages. We do not slow down our lives to explain ourselves to them. Most of the time, we barely notice they are there at all. To a civilization as far beyond us as we are beyond the ants, we might be exactly that easy to overlook. Not hated, not feared, simply beneath their attention or beyond their interest. They might be all around us, woven through the galaxy, in ways we do not yet have the senses to detect, going about business we could not begin to comprehend. And through all of it, we would go on gazing up at an apparently empty sky, feeling utterly, achingly alone. In that version of the story, the silence is a kind of illusion born of our own smallness, the distance between what they have become and what we are, so far, able to perceive. But hold on to that idea of an accidental silence, because we are about to leave it behind. Every explanation we have met until now has quietly assumed the same thing, that whatever quiet lies out there is unintended, that they are gone, or scarce, or simply beyond our reach without meaning to be. There is one more possibility left to face, though, and it is colder than all the others put together. What if the silence is not an accident of distance or attention at all? What if it is a choice, a decision made again and again by everyone out there in the dark, for one simple and terrible reason: fear? Chapter 5: The Dark Forest. This is the idea that tends to stay with people long after the others have faded. It is chilling, not because it is loud or dramatic, but because the more you think it through, the more sense it quietly makes. It is often called the dark forest. The picture at its heart is unforgettable, and it is worth letting it settle in your mind fully. Imagine the entire universe as an immense, dark forest on a moonless night. You are walking through it, alone, and you can see only a few steps ahead of you before the blackness swallows everything. You cannot know what lies beyond that little circle of vision, and you know, deep in your bones, that you are almost certainly not alone in these woods. There are others moving somewhere out among the trees, other travelers, other hunters. Some of them, perhaps, are gentle souls like you, frightened and cautious. Others may be predators, patient and merciless. The trouble is, from where you stand, you have no way to tell which is which. So ask yourself, honestly, what you would do in that forest, where every snapping twig might be a friend, or might be the last sound you ever hear. Almost certainly, you would go silent. You would step softly. You would not call out a cheerful hello into the dark, hoping to make friends. You would never, ever light a fire that might be seen for miles. Because in a place like that, the single most dangerous thing you can possibly do is announce to every unseen thing among the trees exactly where you are and how vulnerable you might be. Silence is not rudeness in the dark forest. Silence is how you stay alive. This haunting image was carried to millions of people through a novel. It appears in the second book of a celebrated science fiction trilogy by the Chinese writer Liu Cixin, a series so popular that it was later brought to screens for an even wider audience around the world. Many people first meet the idea as a piece of storytelling, a chilling notion dreamed up for fiction. But the reason it has lodged so deeply in the minds of scientists and stargazers alike is that it does not stay in the realm of story. Underneath the poetry of the dark forest lies a piece of cold, careful reasoning about survival, the kind of logic that holds together even when you poke at it. And that is what gives the idea its grip and its long shadow. Follow that reasoning through slowly, the way you would feel your way between real trees in the dark. Suppose there truly are many civilizations spread across the galaxy. Now imagine two of them happen to become aware of each other, separated by dozens or hundreds of light years. That distance is the first cruelty. Light years are not just big numbers, they are barriers. A single greeting sent from one to the other, and a single reply sent back, could take centuries to complete. Whole generations would be born and would die in the gap between hello and its answer. So think about what that does to trust. Here on Earth, when two wary strangers meet, they can talk. They can watch a face, hear a tone of voice, trade small gestures of goodwill, and slowly, over hours or years, decide whether the other can be trusted. None of that is possible across the stars. There is no sitting down together, no building of trust over shared time, no chance to look each other in the eye and take a stranger's measure. Each civilization is left alone in the dark, forced to guess at the intentions of something it will never meet, across a gulf too wide to ever bridge in a single lifetime. And it gets worse, because the danger runs in circles. Civilization A cannot know whether B is kind or hostile, but A also cannot know whether B believes A is kind or hostile, and A cannot know what B assumes A is thinking about them, and so on, spiraling into an endless chain of suspicion that can never be resolved from so far away. On top of that hangs one more shadow. Technology can leap. A civilization that looks harmless and primitive today might, in the blink of a cosmic eye, surge ahead and become overwhelmingly powerful tomorrow. Put those pieces together, and a grim logic locks into place, one link at a time. If you call out and reveal yourself to a stranger you can never truly understand, you are gambling the entire future of your species on their goodwill, across a distance too great to ever check or defend. If you guess wrong even once, there may be no second chance, no time to raise a shield before whatever you woke comes to find you. And here is the trap that closes the door completely. If every civilization reasons this way, and any civilization clever enough to survive probably would, then the safest move for everyone, always, is the same. Stay hidden, say nothing, make no fire, send no signal, draw no attention. And there is a darker corner to this logic still, one that the gentlest among us would rather not look at. If another light ever does flare up somewhere in the forest, a young civilization naively announcing itself to the dark, then the coldest reasoning of all whispers a terrible conclusion. The safest thing you can possibly do is to snuff that light out, quickly and quietly, before it has any chance to grow, to spread, and to one day become a danger to you. In a forest full of frightened hunters who can never trust one another, silence is survival, and a stranger's voice is a threat. If that is truly how the universe works, then the silence suddenly makes a perfect, dreadful kind of sense. The sky above us would be crowded after all, full of civilizations, but every one of them holding its breath, every one of them staying dark on purpose, listening far more than it ever dares to speak. The quiet would not be the sound of an empty universe. It would be the sound of a very full one, frozen in mutual fear. And that leads to a thought that should make us pause and perhaps shiver a little, because for the past 100 years, we have not been careful. We have not been quiet, quite the opposite. Remember that expanding bubble of radio waves, the one carrying a century of our broadcasts outward in every direction. In the language of the dark forest, we have been doing the single most dangerous thing imaginable. We have been standing up in the middle of the woods, waving our arms and shouting into the trees, cheerfully telling anything that might be listening exactly where our small, defenseless world can be found. If that thought sends a chill down your spine, you are not alone, and it is exactly the kind of question this channel loves to sit with. If you are enjoying this journey into the deep unknown, take a moment to subscribe so you can come along on the next one. It genuinely helps these ideas reach more curious minds like yours. Now, it is only fair to say that not every scientist accepts this grim vision. Some argue that a truly dark forest is nearly impossible to maintain, that any busy civilization would leak signs of itself no matter how careful it tried to be. So a perfect galaxy-wide silence built on fear is harder to keep than it sounds. That pushback matters, and it keeps us honest. The dark forest is a possibility to sit with, not a proven verdict. But even as a possibility, it lingers, because it takes the thing we most want, which is company, and turns it into the very thing we should most fear. There is something else worth sitting with here, a quieter kind of unease. If the dark forest is real, then our instinct to reach out, to send friendly messages to the stars, could be one of the most reckless things our species has ever done. For generations, we have imagined first contact as a joyful moment, a handshake across the void, humanity welcomed at last into a wider community of minds. The dark forest takes that warm dream and turns it cold. It suggests that the wisest civilizations are precisely the ones we will never hear from, because they learned, perhaps the hard way, to keep their heads down. And the ones foolish enough to shout into the trees may simply not last long enough to answer. And whether or not the forest is truly as dark as all that, every one of these paths eventually leads back to the same doorstep, back to us. We set out asking where everybody is, expecting to learn something about them, about the distant others hiding in the black. Instead, each answer has quietly handed the question back to us, because in the end, the deepest thing the silence asks is not really about strangers among the stars at all. It is about our own future, and whether we have one. Chapter 6: What the Silence Says About Us. After wandering through all these explanations, the rare worlds, the vanished civilizations, the beings too advanced to see, the hunters hiding in the dark, we arrive, a little shaken, back where we started, back home. And this is the quiet twist at the center of the whole mystery. We set out to ask a question about them, about the silence far away, but every road we followed has curved back, gently and inevitably, to a question about ourselves. The paradox was never only about the emptiness out there. It was always, secretly, a mirror. And the reflection it shows us is a single, pointed question. When we look at that long road of narrow gates and that graveyard of possible silences, the thing we most need to know is which travelers we are. Are we among the rare survivors who have already passed the deadliest gate and simply not realized it? Or are we the next in a long line, walking cheerfully toward a wall that has stopped everyone who came before? Everything hangs on that, and the honest answer is that we do not yet know. Remember the great filter, that wall on the long road that almost no traveler gets past. Everything now turns on a single question. Where does that wall stand? Behind us or ahead of us? It is perhaps the most important question our species can ask, and we are trying to answer it while standing in the middle of the road, unable to see clearly in either direction. And strange as it felt earlier, the very emptiness of the sky may actually be a hopeful sign. If the universe is quiet because the hardest gate lies far behind us, because the miracle was the first flicker of life, or that long, unlikely leap to complex cells, then perhaps we are among the rare ones who already made it through. In that version of the story, the road ahead is dangerous, but open, and the silence becomes something almost gentle. The quiet after a race we may have already, without ever knowing it, won. But we cannot simply pick the comforting version and look away, because the other one is just as possible, and it asks something of us. If the filter still waits somewhere in our future, then we are walking toward it right now, in this very century, along with anyone else in the galaxy who ever came this far. And when we look honestly at the age we live in, we do not have to strain to imagine where the danger might lie. The candidates are already here, in our own hands. We are the first generation of the first species on this planet, ever to hold the power to end our own story. We have built weapons that could unmake civilization in a single afternoon, and they have not gone away. We are quietly changing the very climate that has cradled us for all of human history. We are learning to rewrite the code of life itself and to build thinking machines whose reach and consequences we do not yet fully understand. And some serious thinkers now wonder whether a runaway technology of exactly that kind could be the very wall that other civilizations struck. For the first time in the long history of this planet, the greatest threat to a species has begun to come from within, from its own cleverness outrunning its own wisdom. This is the sobering possibility hidden inside the silence, that there may be a narrow, dangerous stretch of road that every civilization must cross, a bridge between gaining great power and learning to wield it wisely, and that most of them, perhaps almost all of them, do not make it across. If that is so, then the quiet sky becomes a kind of warning, written in the absence of every voice that tried this crossing before us and failed, a message with no words, spoken only by the emptiness where other messages should be. And there is a peculiar loneliness in that idea, deeper than simply being alone. It is the loneliness of possibly being late to a party where everyone else has already gone home, of walking through grand, silent halls and realizing the silence is not because no one ever came, but because so few ever lasted. If that is the shape of things, then we are not the first to stand here, small and clever and frightened, at the edge of our own power. We are only the latest, and the question of whether we will be remembered or whether we too will simply add our quiet to the great quiet is one that no telescope can answer. Only we can. That is the sober heart of the Fermi Paradox, and it is worth stating plainly. It suggests we may be standing, right now, at the most delicate moment in our whole history, a narrow passage where a civilization has gained enormous power, but has not yet grown the wisdom to carry it safely. It is a stretch of road where a single bad decade, a single terrible choice, could undo everything that took billions of years to build. It is the kind of moment that might last only a few centuries, a razor-thin window between learning to reshape the world and learning to govern that ability. without destroying ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, that window is exactly where the great silence is born. Because if that passage is as treacherous as it looks, then the quiet out there takes on a heartbreaking shape. It might be the echo of countless others who reached this very same crossing, in their own time, around their own stars. Civilizations that also learned to split the atom, to rewrite their own biology, to build minds out of machinery, and who, one by one, stumbled at the threshold, their voices stilled before they could ever carry across the dark to us. If that is true, then the emptiness we hear is not really emptiness at all. It is a graveyard of conversations that ended too soon. And yet, this is where the story turns and refuses to leave us only in the dark. Because the very same reasoning that frightens us also points to something worth holding on to. The passage is dangerous, yes, but passages can be crossed. If we can find the wisdom to match our power, if we can learn to handle our weapons, our climate, our machines, and our own restless cleverness, without wrecking ourselves on any of them, then what opens up on the far side is almost too vast to picture. A future measured not in centuries, but in millions of years. Time enough to spread out from this single fragile world to others, to become a people of many planets and, one distant day perhaps, many stars, a species that began as fragile creatures on one small blue dot and grew up to inherit a share of the galaxy. That is the strange gift buried inside the silence. It does not only warn us, it also shows us the size of what we could still become if we are careful and lucky and wise. Every explanation we have walked through points back to the same simple truth. Our future is not yet written, and a great deal of it depends on us. Whether we turn out to be truly alone in all this dark, or merely the first among many to look up and start asking why, the same quiet responsibility settles on our shoulders, to take care of this small world and each other, and to last long enough to finally learn the answer. The silence of the universe can feel like the loneliest thing imaginable. A whole sky of stars, and not a single voice answering back. But turn that thought over slowly, and there is another way to hold it. Whether we are the only voice in all that vast darkness, or simply the first among many to break it, the plain fact that we are here at all is astonishing. We are the part of the universe that woke up and started to wonder about itself. We are matter that learned to look up, to ask why, and to refuse to stop searching even when the dark gives nothing back. That is not a small thing. In all the emptiness we have explored, it may be the rarest and most precious thing of all. So perhaps the silence carries more than one meaning at once. Perhaps it is a warning, yes, about how easily a young civilization can lose its way. Perhaps it is a grief for all the voices that may have fallen quiet before we ever arrived. But perhaps it is also a reminder of how fragile and how extraordinary this brief moment of ours truly is. For a little while, on one small world, the universe has opened its eyes and begun to look at itself. That has never been guaranteed. It may never come again. Whatever the answer turns out to be, the way we respond to that silence says everything about who we choose to become. We can let it frighten us into despair, or we can let it remind us to take better care of this planet, of one another, of the improbable gift of simply being here to ask the question at all. The universe has kept its secret for now, and we are still here, still listening, still reaching toward the light, carrying our small candle a little further into the woods. And if you would like to keep walking that path with us, there is another journey already waiting, a chance to step back and take in the true scale of the cosmos we call home, and to see just how small and how utterly astonishing our place within it really is.